For a moment, I would like to take a step back in time, to the early days of my YouTube channel. All those years ago, I did a video about the top 5 things that suck about being a metalhead. And let me tell ya, I have not been aging well. But now that I'm doing a lot more horror content on the channel, I thought it would be fun to do the top 5 things that suck about being a horror fan. Though, I think I may have already done this topic years ago during the Halloween season. But I really don't care. I'm a lot older, I have some fresh perspectives, and I'm a lot better at making videos now. So here are the top 5 things that suck about being a horror fan. But before we get into today's video, don't forget to check me out on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch. I will be doing some live streams pretty soon, so we can play some video games, hang out, talk, and just have a good time together. Also, don't forget to check out my paranormal podcast, The Lost Campfire, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And if you have a paranormal story that you would like to share, you can send it to thelostcampfire@gmail.com today, to possibly be featured in a future episode. I can't wait to hear what you guys have experienced, and to share it with other paranormal enthusiasts. Finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Little things like that go a long way in helping the channel grow. Now, let's get to the list. Number 5. The legitimate desensitization to horror. As horror fans, we obviously want to be scared. That's why we watch so many scary movies. But there is no denying that after spending years watching countless horror movies, the scares tend to run thin. I'm sure we can all remember back to when we were kids, watching our very first horror movies, and how much they thrilled and shocked us. Unfortunately, so many movies use the exact same tricks and tactics to get a rise out of us, and we eventually just become accustomed to it. We know exactly when a jump scare is coming, or when it's going to be a fake out, and we can see the twist endings coming from a mile away. Sure, the movies can still be entertaining, and our love for them will never die. But we can't help but yearn for the days when horror movies would keep us up all night long. Number 4. The realization that there are way more bad horror movies than there are good. There is nothing quite like finding a really good horror movie. The only problem with that is, we often have to dig through piles of low-budget stinkers until we actually come across something that's worth watching. I often equate this situation to trying to find a gold bar in a pool full of wet dog shit. Yes, you will eventually find it, but it's not going to be fun getting there. Now, I know that crappy horror movies are nothing new, but it certainly feels like there has been a greater influx of really bad ones in certain years. I think it's because streaming services are focusing on quantity over quality. And since horror movies are relatively cheap and easy to make, these companies can produce as many as they want, just so they can say they have the most content, regardless if it's good or not. And as horror fans, it's almost like we are cursed to watch this crap, in hopes that we might find something good. Number 3. Having to start the horror movie marathon in August. I don't know about you guys, but for the Halloween season, I do a gigantic horror movie marathon. When I was younger, it was a relatively simple thing to do. Back then, my horror collection was so small that I could binge my favorite scary movies throughout Halloween Day. But as my collection has grown, it has become impossible to do that in one day, so I had to start spreading it out. First, it just went from Halloween Day to the 30th and the 31st, then to the week leading up to Halloween, then the 2 weeks leading up. Next thing I know, I had to start my marathon in late September. Now it has gotten to the point where I have to start my marathon in August, just so I can fit all of my favorites in there. I definitely miss the days of being an irresponsible teenager with no job, when I could just chill and watch horror movies whenever I wanted. But now I have to prioritize work and other responsibilities, and that really blows. But I guess having to start a Halloween movie marathon in the middle of the summer is the price you have to pay as an adult. Number 2. Finding physical copies of our favorite movies can be a real bitch. I don't know about you guys, but I like having physical copies of all of my favorite scary movies. Some people may call me old-fashioned, but I just think there's something special about being able to look at my movie collection and hold the cases in my hand. But there is a problem regarding that. Oftentimes, the movies that I want are near impossible to get, and when they are available, they cost an arm and a leg. Now, I understand why this is the case sometimes. People die, studios go out of business, trademarks, licensing, and distribution rights are lost and sold. It can be a real nightmare trying to figure this stuff out. But in some situations, there's no excuse. For example, I have wanted a DVD copy of the original Dawn of the Dead for a very long time. Little did I know, that movie went out of print years ago, and you would be lucky to find one without having to sell one of your kidneys to get it. Thankfully, I was able to find a copy, but it had to be imported from Korea. Dawn of the Dead is not some obscure indie film from the 20s. It's an incredibly popular, relatively modern movie. You can get every other Dead movie without issue, but Dawn of the Dead? Good fucking luck. And that's not the only one. Fright Night 2, The Legend of Boggy Creek, Brain Dead, and the list can go on. I don't know who owns the rights to these movies, but they need to get their act together and get these into print. The only people who are benefiting from these out-of-print movies are scalpers, and I would rather eat my own foot than give those bastards a single dime. Finally, for the number one thing that sucks about being a horror fan: witnessing the continued and never-ending bastardization of our favorite franchises. It's a recognized phenomena that the longer a horror franchise lasts, the worse it gets. However, writers, directors, and studios will often see that things are not going well, and will often try to course correct. The perfect example of this would be the Halloween franchise. It has gone through many ups and downs, but ever since Halloween Ends, it would seem that the series is going into a permanent nosedive. After all, what could be a greater sign of failure than a beloved movie series becoming a TV show? And Halloween is not the only victim here. Friday the 13th is getting a prequel series. That's right, a prequel. You know, during the time period when nothing happened. Then there was the Scream TV show that was vomit-inducing. And the less said about the god-awful Chucky TV series, the better. Then there are the unwatchable reboots, like the latest Child's Play movie, and the unforgivable Evil Dead Rise. And let's not forget, that many of our beloved franchises are getting turned into bland, boring multiplayer video games. Who in their right mind thought doing any of this was a good idea? I think I speak for a lot of horror lovers when I say that I would rather see our favorite series be put to sleep peacefully, opposed to watching them get degraded and pimped out like a pig at the county fair. Well, that's my list for things that suck about being a horror fan. But now I want your guys' opinion. Do you agree with the points that I made? Or do you have your own list? Let me know down in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, and I'm sure other horror fans would too. Overall, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next one.